What's up, guys? I just finished rebuilding this 1971 Corvette non-telescopic, non-tilt steering column. I put in a lot of new parts. I rehashed and refurbished some old parts. I installed both of the bearings, upper and lower, put in some new pieces, cleaned it up, did some modifications, made some changes. If you're interested in seeing how I did that, keep watching. And this is the upper bearing. It's a press fit. Everything's cleaned up. This area had a little bit of adhesive in it, and I just hit it, cleaned it out, hit it with a little sanding mop thing I had. It's a little sander, one of those little round ones on a drill. And I just went lightly, but just scuffed it up a little. Now, somebody on the Corvette forum suggested when I put this in, and you just hammer it in there, I guess, but since it popped out, it's not really supposed to pop out very easily. They suggested hitting it with a little red sealer, high strength, so I got a little bit of thread lock, the red one. I will place it on the outside after I clean it off with some solvent, and we're gonna jam it in there. And the way I'm gonna do that is I've got this 1-inch socket, and it's the perfect size. So I'm assuming that this lip, the lip on there, wants to seat right down in that groove there. And then if there's anything left over to kind of pinch it, fold it over, I'm gonna do that, but that's what we're looking at. So I'm gonna try that and be right back. All right, so that's down in there. And you can see this little lip right there. So what I'm gonna do, just to try to get this thing to stay in there a little more, is I'm gonna take a very small hammer or some sort of chisel and try to fold this edge over, so it's grabbing onto this top edge, and then I think we'll be good. And you can see I kind of packed the bearing, so that's all good to go. Alrighty, so I'm gonna do that and be right back. All right, let's take a look. So I kind of went around with a regular screwdriver and just tapped around this edge. Now be careful when you tap around that, because I don't know if you can see, but like right over here, this edge, if you bend this metal is soft, like lead. It's like cast, and it's kind of brittle. All this stuff is brittle. You can see right here, there's a little part that could break off. So what I would do is make sure that you go around and try to get anything that's loose, like that little bit right there. Make sure you get any of that off. I'm gonna go clean this out again. I'm gonna blow it out with some air and wipe it down before I start reassembly. But just be careful about this edge around here, because it's just this kind of pot metal. I'm not sure what it is. It's like, I don't know what it is. Pot metal, it's heavy. It's heavy metal. All right, but that part is done. And now we can actually just start with the reassembly. All right, before we run this wire harness down from the turn signal assembly, let's take a look at the difference between the OEM and the replacement. This is the replacement I bought, and this is for non-tilt, non-telescopic. So like I said before, this was broken right through here all the way out to the end, and it made the turn signal really mushy. And so I just checked these out, and basically, look at that. I'll just show you the difference, but they're pretty close. Pretty much the same. Some small differences. Now at first I thought the wires were completely different colors, because that's what it kind of looks like when you just look at these. However, upon looking at them more closely, I realized that the only real difference in color is the left, right turn signal wires, which on the original one are pink and black, and on the replacement are green and tan. All the rest of the wires, and this is just FYI, it doesn't really matter. On the replacement, it's a solid wire color. On the original, it's actually a stripe or a solid wire. So like on this one, it's a black wire with a white stripe. On this one, it's a white. And then we have green, and then we have black with, it's hard to see, but like black with yellow. And then on the replacement, it's yellow, etc., etc. So it is the same layout. It's just a little different. And then on the original, and I don't know if this is going to be an issue, the turn signal wires, they're run a little bit separate, right? They go over here. And on the original, they're actually longer than the other wires, and on the replacement, they're shorter. So it's just weird. Anyway, we're gonna take the new one, so we don't need the old one anymore. We're gonna take the new one, and we're gonna run this sleeve. We're gonna run it into this sleeve, and then we're gonna shove it down the column from the top down, and it goes down right in there, the big slot there. You can kind of see where it goes. It's the only place it's going to go. It just runs down the side right there. Okay, so before we can put this lock, I don't know, section, this head section back on the steering column, we've got to install a couple things. We've got this rod gear attachment. We've got the tumbler, and we've got this pin. We've also, I believe, got this is also part of it, this little spring. And then we can take this whole unit and install it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is try to figure out, well, I'm gonna put this cartridge, I don't know what it's called, cylinder, lock cylinder, I guess, back in, and you can see that it's clocked with this gear down here. It's gonna focus. See that? And you know, and the goal is you want to have that in, you know, the cylinder in, and then you're gonna have it moving this thing. But there's nothing holding this thing in yet. I think I'm not sure if it'll stay in on its own, so I'm gonna try to put some stuff together, and I'll show you how that goes together in a second. Okay, that's in. So one of the things you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to turn the lock itself all the way to the run position. You're gonna drop it in, then you're gonna turn the gear until it slides in, and then it should be in this position. So you see the gear right there. That's all the way in the start position, and this is in the neutral position. Okay, guys, so after a couple tries, I think I got this together correctly. I just want to show you that you need to lower this gear and the pin down to the point and start it in the right spot so that that thick portion goes into the top section there. You see how there's that wide section and there's that wide gear. Most of the gears are not wide, but this last one, you want it to go into that wide space. And I think, you know, it seems self-explanatory or obvious at this point, but nothing is obvious until it is. Now, I put this little retainer below, but I think when I took this apart, this was up here, but then the spring is just, it didn't make any sense to me. The spring, I think, needs to be there. So I think that's correct. Now that this is in place, and you may or may not need to take the lock tumbler in and out, you know, put it in and out to get the gear in the right spot. All of this has to work together. There's also, just FYI, let me see if I can point to it. There's a little tiny tang thing right, oops, oh, that's nice, isn't it? Got grease all over it. It's right there where I put the grease. You see that little tang down there? That's another factor that you want to check. And then also this thing will, you can push this out if you shove that down. That's those two, that's that thing right there with the two contacts on it. Okay, so this is ready to go. So I'm gonna lower this down inside the column there, starting with the end of the rod, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, we're lowering this down. The rod is coming out down there. And then you're just gonna kind of turn this. You can see the two bolt receptor, the threads there, and the 2 bolts there. You're gonna line it up. And it's gonna, when you find the right spot, it's gonna drop in. There we go. Before you assemble this top portion, put in that plastic ring right there. It's where those 2 sections go together. And now we can put in our 4 bolts, and they go here, 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 and those get Loctite. Now the switch is attached, and these are 5/16 by the way, and that's a 1/4 inch length screw. You're gonna check to make sure that when you turn, you guys know this, but when you turn to the start position, to the run position, you've got your start position there, and that has to spring back. And the springiness is in this switch. So I had to move the switch forward. If I put it in the middle of this mount, it didn't contact that springiness area, right? So it was a little shy. So I moved the switch towards the steering wheel, and that took care of that. All right, so we'll move on. All right, now we're gonna run this whole wiring connector down through the steering column, and there's only one really place you can run it, and it's gonna come out down here on the side bottom, on the driver's side. One thing that I just learned that might help you and cut down on your frustration is that when you attach something to help pull this through, it cannot make this any thicker. So I had tied something around here. This thing will barely squeak through at that thickness. So I just taped a wire with regular tape. There's nothing down here on this end. My car's a base model. It's not fancy. So there's not anything down here. So, what? We don't own a dog. So just, whatever you do, make sure that this thing that you're pulling through is thin. That's the point. Okay, let's go. All right, we got our wires run. And I just have the sleeve right up to the top there. So now we're gonna attach this. You see the 2 contact points up here on the bottom of this unit, and then you've got these, which I think this whole design is kind of sketchy, but that's the way it is. So we're gonna attach it with these 3 screws. Be right back. Okay, we're in, and this turn signal works fine. What I discovered is you might have to take a screwdriver and gently work it like down in here, down over here, to get this whole unit to kind of line up and seat and get it to where it needs to be, so you can put those 3 screws in. All right, the other screw, which I don't know if I'm going to install it right now or not, is the turn signal arm, which will go right in here. Will it? Yeah, I guess it goes that way. I don't know if I'm going to install this just because I don't want it sticking out right now, but I'll probably just drop this screw in just so I know where it is. And we'll do that later. That can be done pretty much when you install it, or even after you install it in the car, as long as you leave the cap off. I'll put it in at some point. I'm just not going to focus on that right now. So the next thing, you don't know anything. You can't help. All right, we're ready to install the lower bearing. First, we're going to use this retainer for the spring. It's like a spring seat, and then we're putting the spring on. And then we are going to shove the bearing in the holder. I decided to go with the older, original bearing retainer. And you can see there's 3 main slots, 2 small ones and a big one. And that goes down in there. And then to push that in, you're going to use the cap. Cap goes right on there like that. So that's going to go down like that. And then we're going to pop the spring on, the retaining spring, which I can't do with one hand. So I'll be right back and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, super easy. Bearing greasy. All right, and later we'll install that. We'll lock this up. I gotta glue this down still, just a little bit of glue. It's gonna be jammed on the firewall, so it's not going anywhere. All right, let's go back up to the top of the steering column. Tight. Ooh, snappy. I know my handle's all old and original and crappy, but whatever. I had to use another screw here too because the original one was not gripping, but that is awesome. All right, now let's get that shaft in. That's what she said. We're in. Okay, now before we move on to the upper part of the steering column, I'm going to go ahead and do the shortening, which is the job I was trying to do when I punched the bearing out of the top of the steering column and ended up doing this entire rebuild. So what I'm going to do is, according to all the instructions I have and the data, I want to have 2¼ inches from the end where the rag joint attaches to the lower bearing. So I'm going to mark this. This is 2¼ I'm going to mark that, and then I'm going to support the top probably against the wall or against the floor, and then I'm going to gently tap this in and shorten it up until that point, and then that part will be done. By the way, you guys, the reason I'm shortening the steering column is because I'm installing this Borgeson power steering box, and it sticks up about 2½ inches farther towards the firewall. So if you're not doing that and you have an OEM steering box, then just don't do anything with your steering column. Just leave it as is. 2¼ on the money, you guys. That's it. So I put it on the table. I used a cutting board on the wall. I put a block under here. Just remember when you're doing this, that this whole thing can move still. It can move in and out. So if you're hammering it in, what you got to do is you got to make sure you push this all the way up until it stops every time. You want to check it, right? Otherwise, it could go farther than you think because this thing is moving. Everything's moving around. So or do it a different way, but that's how I was doing it, and I did get it. All right, let's move on. All right, so for the upper section, we've got a few parts. We've got this washer, which has a little beveled edge or embossed edge. I don't know. That little edge goes down towards the bearing. So we'll put that on. Then we have our spring. I'm reusing the spring. I just cleaned it up. Well, did I? I cleaned it up a little. So we'll put that on. Then we're gonna put this contact on for the, I guess it's part of the horn. And we're gonna shove that down on there. Now, the next thing is a 2-piece. On my car, I had this cover, and that's gonna get bolted on like that. So I'm gonna do that, and then this is gonna go on. Okay, note, on these splines in here, there's a wide gap there at the bottom. Well, from this angle, it's at the bottom. And then similarly, there's a wide spot. We're looking down here now. See all those, that's where that goes. And you just line up that one, the wide one, and put this on. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put this snap ring in place. We can get it started. But we're gonna have to press this whole thing down. We're gonna compress this, and I need a tool for that. So I'm gonna go grab it and be right back. Here's the set, Harbor Freight. And then what we're gonna use is, we're gonna use this. And I believe we're gonna need this one. And we're gonna thread that on there. I think it goes right on. Yeah. And then we're gonna pop this over. And we're just gonna screw a bolt right down on there. I think there's a nut and bolt right here. Boom. That's it. And then, so we'll screw this down. It'll push, it's gonna push down on this plate like that. And then at some point, we'll be able to see down there, that snap ring groove. I'll show you in a second. All right, here's a little better view. Make sure you put the ring on first. And then see if I can do this with one hand. It's a little precarious, but you're just gonna crank down this. And then what happens is, it's gonna press this plate down. I'm gonna go a little farther and then we can snap it right in there. All right, it takes a little bit of work, but I don't know. I just have basic tools. I'm sure if you have a snap ring, some snap ring pliers and whatever, you can get that in. So that's in, and now we can remove the tool. Okay, that pretty much wraps up this video. There's a few other little doodads we've got to put together. Just a couple little things, like we're gonna drop the spring and this pin into there. And then we're gonna pop this guy on about there. I'm gonna put it in with these screws. I'm actually missing a washer, so even though I have the nut for the steering column, I'm just gonna loosely put that in for now. And then I'm gonna leave the steering wheel off and all that, so we're not doing the horn button right now, because I need to put that washer in. But you guys, that's pretty much it. I mean, the rest of this is pretty basic. Actually, I don't think that's right. I think thing's supposed to be sticking up. Anyway, thanks for watching. I got to do other stuff today besides this, so I'm going to end this video, but hopefully it's been helpful. Maybe it's been a little confusing, but I always appreciate you guys' support and watching the channel, checking out the videos. Hopefully it'll help somebody down the road. See you later.